Entrepreneurship, innovation, and startups are related business concepts. They're mysterious and vague for most people. I hope one can understand it better through case studies. Here's a compilation of cases I taught at Northwestern University. There are cases of big budget flops, and then cases of starts from zero. There are studies of failures of highly educated and smart people. I also talk about the start of well-known companies and the life cycle decline of some. Please comment below and like, since these videos take long hours to make. At the end of each case, we'll draw a lesson. These lessons are all collected on one sheet at the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Enjoy. If you want to talk about failed entrepreneur activities, you cannot not talk about the New Coke. New Coke was a product that was introduced by Coca-Cola in 1985. Now, everyone knows that Coca-Cola has a secret formula, and this was the sacred property of the company. However, Coca-Cola really have to respond to the mounting competition from Pepsi-Cola around 1985. So what they did is they introduced New Coke. The New Coke has a different formulation. The company was trying to completely reinvent itself after 100 years. They did a lot of customer survey. The customer survey said, "We love it. We like this concept." They had blind test of flavor, and people love it. All the market analysis suggests that this is going to be a great success. So they launched it. Guess what happened? People actually organized protest against this new product. Now think about it. Protest on the street for a drink? Unheard of. What went wrong? It turned out that the market research was wrong. During the market research, they were asking the people if they like the flavor of it, but they didn't tell them that if they like it, they are going to take away the original flavor. They are going to discontinue the original flavor. This classic case shows that whatever research you do, if it's not accurate, it does not translate into marketplace success. Coke was lagging behind Pepsi-Cola in terms of sales for many decades. But still, it does not give excuse, does not give reason for New Coke to succeed. Sometimes what is meant to be is meant to be. During the COVID-19 pandemic, season, people use Zoom calls, FaceTime all the time. A lot of people would think that picture phone is a great success, but it was not the case at the time it was first introduced, around 1970. AT&T introduced its first picture phone to the American market. It was rather expensive, but by every logic, the executives think that this product is going to succeed. Because who doesn't like picture phone? Well, in 2020, everyone loves picture phone. But in 1970, it was not the case. The picture phone of AT&T failed. Because it's too expensive, it does not recover its cost, so the customer base never grow. Now guess what? If you have one person with a picture phone and another person doesn't, there won't be any picture phone. So the customer base never grows, and the company does not have the dare to really reduce the price, of equipment and service so that they can mushroom. And of course, there are other cultural considerations and other personal preferences that hindered the growth of the business. But this case illustrates how hard it is to make something that is rightfully useful for the picture phone to go from a bust to boom. Have you ever wondered whether it's possible for some entrepreneurs to have perfect record? It is actually impossible. Think of professional basketball. Stars like Michael Jordan have a scoring title and have many championships. But their success rate at 3 point is only 33%. That means they miss two for every one that they hit. And it's the same thing for people in the entrepreneurial world. Steve Jobs, for example, failed at launching Apple Newton. Apple Newton was a handheld computer that was ahead of its time. It was beautifully engineered, it was nicely made, and he was really doing his best as a product manager. Unfortunately, it was not accepted at the time. On the other hand, one of the great things that Jobs succeeded is Apple iTunes. Now, he was able to turn the music industry on its heels. How was he able to do it? Before Jobs started, the ecosystem of the music industry is already there. People use MP3 players, and some people use websites for pirated music. It was hotly debated, but nobody knew how to solve it. Jobs was the only one who recreated the entire ecosystem for digital music. He has iTunes, he set the pricing for songs, he made the iPod for playing music. It is a stroke of genius, making something out of nothing, making a great thing out of nothing. The people like Jobs, doesn't matter whether they fail or succeed. All they want is to create the best product out there, to create the best value out there, and they keep trying. And guess what? If you succeed once out of 3 times, that's good enough. Most of the entrepreneurs who want to start have another problem. They never start. So if you never start, your record stays perfect and your success always equal to 0. The first electric refrigerator was invented around 1920. How do people preserve food? How did people have cool drinks? Let's talk about a great story of a Frederick Tudor. He is known as the Ice King of New England. Tudor was from a family of businessmen. He started to enter business at the age of 13. That's 1786. Around 1806, he decided that he wants to go all in to create the ice trade. What is ice trade? The idea is simple: to carve ice from frozen lakes in New England and ship it to the tropics during the summer. That sounds like a wonderful thing, but it took him about 40 years to fully develop this into a comfortable passive income trade. He made the first shipment of ice around 1806 using a boat that he purchased, and he was only 23 years old. The first shipment resulted in a loss. But the second year he did it again. A lot of the ice melted. It's lost. The loss continued for about 4 years until 1810. 1811 was the first year that he was able to make a profit of $7,400. Most of the profit was stolen by one of his business partners, one of his employees. So that resulted in a loss again. 1812 and 1813, he was in so much debt that he has to spend time in the debtor's prison. Think about it. That's 6 years after he started to launch. But he never stopped. In 1815, he shipped 150 tons of ice to Cuba. And that's the first year he started to have profits. Between 1816 and 1825, remember he can do this trade once a year. He was able to continue to improve the technology of shipping and continue to get more profit each year. So those are 7 good years. In 1826, he had a lucky break. One of his suppliers developed a great way to cut ice out of the lake using a horsepower plow. This allowed mass production of New England ice and increased productivity and resulted in better insulation and lower cost. In 1834, he tried to get into other trades and he lost all the money again. So this takes ups and downs and ups and downs. Until 1845, he was able to live a comfortable life and he created the trade, he cultivated the demand, He is a king of the trade. Although he is only a small part of the trade, he was able to live comfortably. Guess what? Around 1854, the first commercial ice making machine was invented. His business is disrupted again. So this story tells you the lens it takes and how much the power of vision has to be coupled to the hustling and endurance to make something work on the commercial stage. There's no such thing as a passive income. For many people, the startup world seems like a paradox because we all know how risky it is. It is very risky, as many people would warn you. The rate of success is very small. But on the other hand, all the successful entrepreneurs that people admire, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, they are the top rich of the world, and they are all entrepreneurs. So what's going on here? It turned out that they have a secret. The secret is that they become a businessman at a very young age. They earned the business mindset when they are very young. Elon Musk started a large number of companies. People all know what he did with SpaceX, with Tesla, and PayPal. But what is important is what he did before that. Even before he started PayPal, Elon Musk had already started a company with his younger brother. And this company makes software tools for New York City newspapers. They sell them tourist information to newspapers. And this company was able to sell at $370 million around 1998. That is his first pot of gold. But what is important for Elon Musk is not even that. It's what he did before. When he was very young, his dad took him for a tour of the United States, and they stayed in hotels. In those hotels, he learned the joy of computer gaming. There's always computer gaming machines in the hotel lobby. So when he goes home, he started to program ardently for making games himself. He used Commodore 64 to make games, and he was able to sell games at a very young age of 12. So that is his first foray into the business world. He learned to make what people want, and he learned how to sell things. That's where he got his first entrepreneurial mindset. When Bill Gates was a high school student, he and Paul Allen was working on computer programming at that time. Bill Gates, even in high school, was already entering into the business world. He was consulting for local companies, and he made a software to control traffic lights when he was in high school, and he intended to sell the software. So he already is a businessman. Even before he goes to university, even before he started his first company, he was already into business. He has already had his taste of real business and gained his mindset. The computer game Angry Bird was one of the first that makes the Apple iPhone and Apple iPod really, really popular because it used motion control, it used the tablet interface. But do you know why Angry Bird becomes so popular? Actually, nobody knows. It went viral. People demand it, and seriously, no one understands. It's certainly well made, but there are a lot of well made games. It's certainly interesting, but there are lots of interesting games. Exactly why does something go viral is not often known. The story is actually very interesting. Three technical geniuses out of Helsinki started Rovio, and they started to make games. They were heavily debating about whether to make business software or making end consumer software like games. And it's a hard debate. They got the funding from their parents. One of the parents happened to be a very rich and famous and successful entrepreneur. So he's got money to spend. He spent $1 to $2 million of his own money to keep the company going. Guess what? The company write codes, write apps, publish it, and see if it fly off the shelf. It tried once, it didn't. Tried twice, it didn't. Tried 3 times, it didn't. Tried 4 times, a small success, like a base run for baseball. Number 5, kind of failed. Number 6, didn't fly off. What should you do? Keep going. It turned out that their number 52 app, something that an engineer wrote on the side in spare time, actually became popular. You can consider Angry Bird, the game, as a great success. Is there a formula for that success? Maybe. But if you just copy all the formula, you may not have the success. A lot of times, good luck happens when you try something for a very long time. But when you try it for a very long time, you have to try it in the right way. You want to try the right way in a lot of times, and you will fail many times, but you will have one success. And one of the most famous story is the Angry Bird. Many young people know that dropshipping business can be profitable, but what they don't know is that it takes tremendous amount of practice and tremendous amount of capital near the later stage. If you need a successful navigational example, it has to be Gymshark. Started by 2 youngsters at their age of 19 when they were in college. Their names are Ben Francis and Louis Morgan. They started with absolutely nothing. They started to dropship bodybuilding pills. Later on, Ben Francis realized that they quickly reached a bottleneck for the dropshipping. There are copycats, competitors coming up. Apparels is a very, very oversaturated, highly competitive field. Now, it's good and bad. The good thing is that it is highly competitive, meaning it's very big. There are many opportunities, many ways to find small niche of customers. Of course, it could be bad because it's competition and it takes money. But how can someone without much capital do this? What they did is a classic recipe book for success. They started by using their sewing machines to make made-for-order garments. So they basically only make ones when there are orders coming. Ben learned how to use a sewing machine and used it to make things himself. He quickly reached about 500 pounds per day in sales. That's pretty amazing. That gives working capital. But there's a bigger hurdle to jump if you want to scale. So he used all his money to go to an expo. And at the expo, they used Twitter, they used social media to promote, and they quickly reached 30,000 sales within a few hours after the expo ended. Now, this brings the company to another level of performance. As of 2019, they have about $170 million of revenue for about $20 million worth of profit. Now, that's pretty amazing, considering that it started in a very saturated area by 2 people with no capital. The key for Ben Francis' success is that he became a business person by entering dropshipping. Even if the dropshipping operation was not a huge success, it enabled them to become businessmen. It enabled them to have a business mindset. Later on, their success is achieved by using advertising and promotion heavily. If you don't advertise, if you don't promote, you can have the best product on earth. No one will show up at your door and pay you. So I hope this lesson gives everyone a hope that you can start with nothing, that you can start as a student, you can start as a side hustle, and you can start with no capital, no designer, and finding the validation first, and then build on top of that. To some extent, this is a success following the lean startup formula because you want to find what people want to buy and then enlarge that sales, enlarge that part of the business. Of course, the success cannot be copied easily because it is also a survival story. There are many ways that you can fail. That's what the classic storybooks, the Wikipedia page will never talk to you about. So if you want to start a good business, large business, $100 million business with no money, you owe yourself to look up the story of Gymsharks. The fashion online store of Shein is getting attention in the US. The founder is worth $10 billion. What an overnight sensation! Or was it? Let's review. This is a startup casebook investigation of Shein. Shein comes from the word she inside. We'll briefly review the history and growth. We'll then discuss the business model that made it unique. Then we discuss the massive online marketing strategy. All this publicity and visibility takes money. We'll talk about the investment situation. Shein's founders is obviously the difference maker. We'll review his background. Then we draw some conclusions about startup. Overnight sensation? If you have noticed Shein in 2021 or later, you should know it actually started in 2008. The world order started to change after the financial crisis. It was originally a wedding brand called Zico, ZZKKO, and later came under the domain She Inside, as a site that sold wedding dresses and women's fashion geared toward US and English language shoppers. After its latest funding run, a Chinese tech blog reported the company's worth to be around 300 billion yuan or $47 billion. It is roughly the valuation of Twitter, still a chump change for Elon Musk. Nothing big happened suddenly. Shein kept growing over 100% per year for many years, and then the ordinary citizens of the world started to notice. It is merely a winner out of many hundreds of thousands websites, stores, and companies started around 2008 in China to sell in USA. Most ended being just a happy little store on Amazon. Shein is the eventual result of all the upstarts from the ruins of a global financial crisis. This is the start of all the shops now that are on Amazon. One of a kind. No success is accidental. Shein's business model is unique and hard to duplicate. It includes three elements: low price, high volume, fast design and fast prototyping, TikTok advertising. There are tens of thousands of styles on the retailer's site, and each day about 1,000 to 5,000 more are added, depending on the source of report. By 2016, the founder has assembled a team of 800 designers and prototypers dedicated to rapidly producing Shein-branded clothes. Now talk about MVP. Of course, as you started to realize, such speed and cost can only be achieved in one place on Earth. In southern China, Guangzhou, to be exact. The place is flushed with textile markets ever since the Ming Dynasty. Many people work hard and have a lot of expertise with commerce. Hefty leverage. In 2017, Shein started to land in the US. However, it is not until TikTok in 2020 does it become viral. All the advertising, hiring, and growth campaigns take money. It cannot be sustained organically from revenues and profits. By 2020, Shein had raised rounds of 15 billion US dollars. It is not eager to go IPO, which carries calculated risks. Though 15 billion sounds like a lot of money, it is used to support really massive market penetration quickly. Is the investment worth it? Well, Amazon's valuation is $1 trillion. If Shein can reach 1/10 of that, or $100 billion, this late-round investor may still manage to win some. Costly marketing.
Why a profitable company needs so much investment? The answer: marketing is expensive. Shein relentlessly drives both organic and paid traffic. Its website SEO has tens of millions of backlinks to help with Google algorithm, and then it pays Google extra. Founder's Edge. You may wonder what kind of person or team would come up with this idea in 2008. In fact, it is nothing but founders' good management. As I said, many similar stores popped up in 2007 and 2008. The founder, Chris Xu, or Yang Tianxu in Chinese, actually was a fresh college grad in 2007 from Qingdao University of Science and Technology. He did not graduate from Tsinghua University or MIT, but he did SEO work on his first job off college. He took off from there. I tell all these lessons to help listeners draw some conclusions. Here are some important lessons that I hope you agree. It takes 10 to 15 years to achieve anything great. It takes extraordinary founder and persistence to win. Without capital, no one will know Shein. Traffic and habit building is crucial, part of the customer acquisition cost. Technical insider knowledge of SEO is key, and this is an unfair advantage for the founder. Do you agree? Please leave comments. A story like this is always epic when you look back the day one of the start. Actually, stories like this are not rare, but very common. For other stories, please take a look at my channel. I'm listing 2 questions here for thinking and discussions. Why do you think it is important for the founder to take investment? Do you think anyone else would have done the same if they started at the same time? Thank you very much. See you next time.
Let's take a look at one example of a company called Light in the Box. It's a bigger version of Gymshark. I started to notice this company after seeing a lot of the advertisement that they put. Maybe you notice them too. It's this special kind of shirts that has this elusive perspective effects or very artistic shirts. Their ads are everywhere. They must be spending a fortune advertising. Because I don't see Gymshark advertisements, that means they're doing more advertising than Gymshark. On the other hand, I don't hear advertisement of Bombas socks anymore. That means their ad campaign is either slowing down or maybe the company is in a retraction phase. Even if you print this t-shirt on demand, it is not an easy job. It must be pretty expensive because you're printing the pattern over the entire shirt. That makes it harder. It's harder to do technically. It's possible, but you have to figure out a way. It's not impossible to copy. It's probably not something that an average Joe in a house can do with a controlled cost. And if they do this printing in China, they have to ship it to you. It turns out that all the advertisement is a funnel. The funnel gets you to visit their websites eventually. Not many people click on the ads, and for people who click on the ads, not many people go in deeper. Not many people go in deeper into their main websites. And still fewer people would bookmark them, still fewer people would browse, but financially somehow, I have to believe that the money they get at the end of the funnel is more than enough to support the ad campaign. It turns out Light in the Box tries to make a global retail brand. It really has a high ambition, and it started in 2007. It's listed on New York Stock Exchange in 2013 with a revenue of about 70 million per year. Whether that revenue is entirely real or not, I don't know. but let's trust a company on face value. Now, in the larger scheme of things, this company is not a big online shopping drop site company. It is way, way bigger than any drop shipping site. It is way bigger than Gymshark. It is way bigger than Bombas. But still, have you heard of it unless they do advertising? According to the limited reviews that we see online, the company has very high shipping costs. And perhaps that's one of the tricks that they do to make more money. It's naturally higher because you're shipping from overseas. But maybe they are making some money through the shipping. They are using part of the shipping cost to justify the revenue or the profit. Look at the stock performance. It has been going downhill slowly ever since 2013. Now what's happening? If you have this company, would you like its performance after the IPO? It turned out even for such a lackluster company that very few people know, even in China, not alone in America, this company has been in execution for a long time. It operated for 6 years and make up all the performances of revenues and profits to justify its IPO. And after the IPO, of course, the founders gets very rich. And that's part of the point. Good luck to the company, and I hope you understand something about how a startup company get its reward, get its exit from this example. Thank you. Early on, I have already identified the reason that you must focus. I have given you a secret tip to finding the best idea in the many ideas that you have. I have analyzed the tripod theory of an anatomy of a great idea. So now if you have a vague idea, that's only one leg of the idea tripod, you can construct a big business idea. If you have many ideas, you will find the motivation and the courage to focus on one. Let me give you an example of a company called Bombas Socks. Bombas Socks is a company that makes and sells socks. Bombas Socks buys low-cost source from countries like China and sells it in the United States. They buy for about 50 cents and they sell for $15. How were they able to do this? So they were able to do this through heavy advertising. They spent $100 million on advertising on radio, not on internet. And their claim, their story is that they give one pair of socks for every pair of socks that people buy. So that's the story of Bombas Socks. Bombas Socks also claim that their socks is extremely comfortable. So they have the three legs and the camera. The camera is the socks. Would many people care about socks? Of course they do. A lot of people care about socks. Would business care about socks? Yes, because now they are advertising on radio stations. Radio stations love them because they're giving radio stations advertising money. The sock factories in China love them because they're taking products off their loading dock. Do they have a good story? Yes, they do. That's how Bombas construct a great story. I'm trying to show you that every idea can become a good story. Here's another example. Let's say you're interested in food safety. You know there are food makers that use subpar materials for making products and they sell them at high price. Let's say you don't like this. That's a great idea. How do you do this as a business? One company did it this way. They serve as an undercover detective in the supermarket. They go to the supermarkets and pick up random products, and they identify if any of the sources uses subpar materials. How do they get paid for this? They actually sign contract with the brand companies. So the brand companies want to weed out any bad imitators. They want to get rid of low bar competitors. They want to get rid of copycats. This company therefore gets paid from the brand companies, and they do a great service for the environment, for the consumers. So they have the story, consumers love them, and they have the financial income, they have the business model, the brand companies love them. And they turn a vague idea, placing the food into a real business. It's not a big business, but it affects the lives of a lot of people. That's how they succeed. Many people spend too much time admiring the great success of Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, etc., etc. But they forget to look into the elemental success of millions and billions of small businesses. Here we're going to analyze one small business. It's an eBay store. This eBay store sells discs of used Wii games, Nintendo Wii games, and they sell disc only, no package, no nothing. So the shipping is very cheap. Now let's take a look at this store's business. This store seems to focus only on discs and only on Wii used game discs and only on disc-only offerings. So they can offer at the lowest price and the customer would believe them because there's no fancy packaging, there's no fancy materials, and the store has a very high rating. So how do they do this? It's actually not easy. If you look at the offering, it offers fantastic products. This is a product that millions of programmers have spent countless hours making. So they are very high quality offerings. Great games that people love to buy. Who are the people who's going to buy it? Not everyone, of course. Those are the people who loved the Wii games, who are coming back to buy the games that they used to play. So think about the funnel. The funnel is game lovers, Wii game lovers, people who appreciate a Wii game, and people who appreciate it enough and they want to buy one again because the disc they used to have is probably gone or badly damaged. So there isn't a lot of people, but that adds up to a big enough number. If you can harness that business, then you can make enough money out of it. So let's take a look at how this store makes money. One thing you notice is that the shipping time is very long. This long shipping time seems to indicate that the shipping is done overseas. It could be due to drop shipping or it could be made on demand. So they have an operation that reduces the cost. This is a crucial element of business, high quality and cost control. They got it somehow. That's their secret sauce. That's their secret method. That is their intellectual property. That is their unfair advantage. You must have it. Because no matter how small the niche market is, there are competitors. Take a look at those two competitors. They make the price really low. So unless you can keep the price low, you're not going to be able to attract customers. You're not going to be able to sell a lot. So this particular business figured out a way to control the cost, offer high quality, and beat everyone on the price. There has to be some secret sauce. There has to be some scheme. The scheme is not the business model. The business model is very simple. To sell used discs to people who love Wii games. That's a business model. It sounds wonderful. But you have to have a scheme. The scheme is unspoken. It's not written in the business model. It is only figured out in the marketplace by looking at your competitors, by looking at your skills and your ability, maybe to mass produce them on demand. So this is a very typical business. You have to have offering, you have to have a store. The store has to be well ranked, and you have to have customers and a great funnel. Fortunately, eBay provides that great funnel for them. There is a business model and there is a business scheme, so-called the business method or the business strategy. They were able to win this. Now think about it. It's one thing to sell one or two of your used game discs. It's another thing to be able to sustain a living based on this particular method. It actually have a great store. Think about it. This is not an empty store with one item. This is a store with hundreds, perhaps thousands of discs. This store has a huge funnel. This store knows how to lead customers in and knows how to do this with relatively small cost. Fortunately, eBay provides that small cost platform. If you move this store to Facebook or to Amazon, it is not going to survive because the product may not be legal, because the cost of doing the business might be too high, that it's going to eat into the $5 purchasing price. So this small business is worth studying because it is epic. This store and this business managed to do it, and is worth our applause and worth our study. Thank you. Most business stories are hidden. They are concealed. They're never told. I have a lot of successful entrepreneurs, and their stories are very interesting, but very few people tell them, and very few people tell the way it is. A lot of business is secrecy. It's not the idea is secret, but exactly how they do it is secret. Many people do not share business insider information. In rare cases like online teaching and online commerce, the person who is doing the business are willing to share some of their progress, some of their thoughts, because they wanted to gain followers, they wanted to gain likes, they wanted to share the information. That's very nice. So we try to gather some of this information for you. One of the articles linked below is from a Udemy teacher, and he shares the information about how he find his first successful gold mine of courses, and what he warned against everyone to not do. Is very interesting. So take a look. Thomas Edison had a lot of great inventions. One of the tricks he used is to invent many things in parallel. So he failed at some things and he succeeded at some things. He's like the great Michael Jordan of basketball. Keep on shooting. Sometimes you miss, but eventually you will make some. Thomas Edison's first invention was a giant failure. It is a vote recording machine. Edison worked in the telegraph industry, so he knows the power of telecommunication. But his first invention when he was young was a failure. By logic, a device that records votes remotely is a great invention. It allows for speed, it saves time, it makes the government very efficient and transparent. But that's exactly why the people in the politics do not like it. So eventually he wasn't able to sell any of those. The reason that this is a bad invention was that there was no qualified user. It's a great technical feat, but there is no user. The people who likes it don't pay, and the people who don't like it don't want to pay. After that, Thomas Edison learned that whatever I invent, it has to be able to sell. If I can't sell, I don't invent it. Edison invented a number of cool things. The electric pen is a modern-day copier. It allows somebody to handwrite something, and then the movement is transferred to a wax paper and later on used for print. It's a modern-day office automation machine. It is interesting and useful and was able to get customers, but it's difficult to mass produce. Eventually, Edison has to give up after about 10 years of trying, and ultimately it becomes a reasonable business. The marketing part is very time-consuming. Edison also invented a talking doll. Again, by logic, a great invention, a doll that can talk. He was able to get some customers. Most of the products were quickly returned because the sound that the doll makes is not authentic. Edison had a vision to create a lot of precursors of modern-day inventions. His Edison Home Service Company was basically the modern-day Netflix. It rents movies to neighborhoods. Think about it. 1890. He had a home theater system that allows people to watch movies. But unfortunately, it was very difficult to market because he doesn't have a lot of choices of movies. There weren't movies at that time. There weren't good source of material to be projected. So although people like the idea, it's not marketable. And Edison learned it the first hand. See, even the great Thomas Edison, the great inventor, cannot market some of the things that he invented. Overall, the three reasons that some of the inventions fail are the following. Number one, no qualified buyer. Number two, bad quality. Number three, the marketing cost is too high. or the timing is wrong. So from this story, you should learn a number of things about the art of invention. A lot of companies that are started off in academia ended up in failure. I have at least two examples. Both of them are very famous professors, good friends of mine. And they started this company. One is a biodetection for cancer markers, for cancer biomarkers. So the promise of that technology is to detect cancer earlier so that you can start treatment earlier. Sounds very promising. The second one is a microfluidic chip that can detect the presence of antibody antigens. So supposedly you can use that platform to do discovery of antibodies or drugs for cancers or COVID and things like that. Both sounds extremely exciting. And they were able to successfully build the company, got the investment, run up to 50, 100 people team, and both professors are very adamant. They spent 5 to 10 years working on their company. They didn't let it go. They keep going, and the company actually went public. They went into the IPO. Okay, they were listed. Wonderful story. But after 2 to 3 years, the companies dropped off the radar. They can't generate revenue. They don't have sustained customers. They have to be delisted from NASDAQ. And so I want to tell you that it is a very difficult process to actually go from technology discovery to a sustainable, continuously profitable company. A lot of things that we think is useful is not. You have to look at the demand. If the demand is not there, then people won't demand it. Okay? If you think somebody will want a better cancer detection, somebody would want a faster platform, then you could be wrong. Who am I and why do I create a class like this? My name is Chang Liu. I'm an engineering faculty. I have deep background in engineering. I'm a fellow of the IEEE, and I have been a professor for 20 years. But in order to understand startups, I have read all the books that are available out there, but they're not satisfying. So I went out and started 6 companies, and finally I can connect the book knowledge with experience. And my goal is to teach everyone to become a successful self-activator. I created this class out of my passion because a lot of friends of mine have had failure experiences. They have either failed to start or they have failed to reach their goals. And I have a lot of stories to tell. I really want to share that with you. Now, let me give you a few stories of people that I actually know. One of my friends started a company. He was able to get investment. He quit his job. He built a big operation, had sales, and voila, everything was going okay until a dirty competitor took him out. Another friend of mine is a college professor. He has done wonderful work in advanced research, but he can never turn his ideas, his prototypes, into a business. He was able to get some investment here and there, but it was never able to scale. There's another friend of mine who started a company, and he was quite unfortunate because he had a great run. He started this company, and within 3 years, he was able to ramp up to 100 million. And the company was doing great for 5 years, but then he was sabotaged by his co-founders. The co-founders wanted more shares. They eventually kicked him out of the founding team. I have another friend who is highly trained and he works in a national lab. He developed a wonderful gas sensor. It can be used to detect air quality. He was able to get the funding easily. He built the product, built the company, and guess what? His product is right in between the high-end product and the low-end product. His device performs worse than the high-end one just by a little bit. And his device performs better than the low-end one by a lot, but it's not as cheap. Nobody wants his device. Nobody buys his product. Good startups have to have advisors. You want to avoid these situations before you go, because once you encounter the risks, you're already too close to navigate away from it. It is very important to have checks and feedbacks and advice and mentors. Let's get started. Let me give you a real example that I encountered. It is about a formaldehyde sensor. Formaldehyde is a toxic gas that can endanger people's health. Our company makes it. We make really the best product in the country of China. But market is a lot more complicated than you think. In our handheld formaldehyde sensor category, there is a high-end product from England. And then there is a low-end product provided by a local competitor. The high-end product costs $1,000 each. And supposedly it's very trustworthy because it's from a foreign source. The low-end product also claims to be very good, and they sell for $100. So the price differential between the high-end and the low-end is amazing. But ironically, the low-end product sells 100 to 200 units a day, and the high-end one only sells 10 a day. So how do you position your product in the middle? That is very difficult, because if you make a product that is the best in China, can you beat the low-end one that has a very good marketing strategy? They basically decided to sell for very low profit margin. On the other side, can you beat the foreign brand with a high quality, high price product? Our quality is almost as good as the UK brand, but people have a preconceived notion that products from the West are better. Now, what are you going to do? If you're the second best in the world, you are a price taker. You have to position yourself in between something like 1,000 to 100. But mind you, component cost of all the sensors is about $200. Unless you have a big marketing volume, you're not going to be able to sell for 100. You're between a rock and a hard place if you're the number 2 in the world. Why is that? Because you have to compete on both price and marketing strategies.
If you want a great example of someone from engineering background moving into startup and eventually becoming a self-made billionaire, you want to study the story of Judith Faulkner. If you want to see how someone managed to steer the growth of a company over 20 years, you can study the company she founded, Epic Systems. Faulkner has become one of the world's richest women. Forbes estimates she is worth $2.4 billion. But despite her wealth and the massive influence her company has on Dane County, Faulkner keeps a low profile. Growing up in New Jersey in the 1960s, Faulkner was a nerd before Microsoft founder Bill Gates made them cool. Faulkner's life is informed by the parents who raised her. Faulkner came to the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 1965 to pursue a master's degree in computer sciences after graduating with a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. UW-Madison's computer sciences program was only the second in the country at the time. Its curriculum wasn't finalized, professors weren't sure in which school it fit and women researchers were few. An early class Faulkner took at UW-Madison introduced her to the potential in pairing computer science and medicine. Faulkner actually started her Madison journey in the psychiatry department. She already had an undergraduate degree in math from Dickinson College in Pennsylvania, and was completing her master's in computer science in Madison in 1976. At school, Faulkner took a lot of initiative. She did have a lot to say and a lot to discuss, a lot of questions to ask. However, she did not pursue a PhD program. A professor recommended her to faculty members who wanted to develop a program that centralizes and tracks patient information. Two of Faulkner's early mentors were Dr. Warner Slack and Dr. John Graced, both advocates for applying computing devices to logistical healthcare problems. Faulkner did research with both men that ultimately led her to create Epic's initial software. In fact, Warner Slack has started to make computer and patient interact since 1966. In 1965, Slack had the idea, called Patient Power, that we could program a computer to interact directly with patients to engage in a meaningful dialogue, to explore medical problems in detail and do so in a personalized and considerate manner. It was quite controversial at its time. Slack said Faulkner was an outstanding student and had wonderful ideas. Graced met Faulkner in 1969 when he was the chief resident in internal medicine at UW. Together, they would become the primary co-founders of Human Services Computing, later to be renamed Epic. Graced, who worked in the psychiatry department, needed a graduate student to make a call schedule for the hospital using a computer, and called on Faulkner. She stayed up all night several nights in a week to finish it, Graced said. These later become the foundation of Epic. Faulkner wrote the code, using the computer language MUMPS, Massachusetts General Hospital Utility Multi-Programming System. The founder of Meditech, an electronic health record company, had developed it in 1968 at Mass General Hospital. Faulkner's program became the kernel of the Epic electronic health record. In an era pushing for openness, Epic has accomplished this in a decidedly old-fashioned way. Its electronic health record is based on a 44-year-old programming language called MUMPS. By 2000, Epic had 69 customers, and had yet to figure in a top 20 list of EHR vendors for hospitals. Its hospital customers were negligible, but two had quietly garnered awards, notably the Northwest branch of Kaiser Permanente in Portland, Oregon. So, when the Oakland, California-based HMO began a search in 2003 to replace its old IBM system, Epic found itself on a short list that quickly became a face-off between Epic and Cerner. The Kansas City-based company had over $500 million in revenues in 2003, more than 3 times Epic's. It was also founded in 1979. Kaiser decided they liked Epic, but wanted Faulkner to sell the company. However, Faulkner refused. Over 20 years later, Cerner was sold to Oracle, while Epic still remains in Wisconsin, still remains true to customers, and still remain Faulkner's. I hope you find this story interesting. It shows 1. Many smart people can get into the right position to hit on something by serendipity, many even at the same time, some even before you. 2. Some of the startups succeed on hard work and eventually good luck. 3. Customer service and connections are important. 4. Business strategy plays a key role among a field of competitors.
As an inventor and entrepreneur, I love this book. This book is by Harold Evans called They Made America. It has about 50 to 100 stories, very well written, very well researched. It has innovators, inventors, scientists, business builders, enterprise builders, visionaries, a lot. One of the story I like is Estee Lauder. Estee Lauder is a cosmetic brand, and Estee Lauder herself is a great entrepreneur. She possesses many visionary and executional skills. She has an uncle who knows how to mix up cosmetic stuff for anti-wrinkle creams and so on and so forth. And she was great at marketing. She had a vision of building a top-line cosmetic line in the United States. So she went about 1 to 2 years basically giving away the stuff for free, and she never charged for anything. She just used word of mouth until the bonfire starts to lit on its own, until the fire starts to self-sustain. And she had many opportunities to go to any department store, but she only wanted to go to the top line department store. So she waited longer years, she waited longer times, and eventually she got it. It's worth the effort. Read her story. Estee Lauder is an amazing entrepreneurial story that many entrepreneurs, today's dropshippers, Shopify store owners, side hustlers should know, because she was one of the best. This picture depicts a very famous scene. You see a horse carriage coach is crossing a train track, and the train suddenly has to stop. This is a product demonstration arranged by George Westinghouse. George Westinghouse is an American enterprise builder. He is extremely experienced. He is a good inventor, a good enterprise builder. He started with mechanical knowledge, never went to school. He was fortunate enough to have a lot of skills, and he encountered the age of trains, the age of natural gas, and the age of electricity. At one point in his career, George Westinghouse invented an air brake. It's a Westinghouse air brake that uses high pressure air to stop trains, to stop rapid moving trains. This may sound like a no-brainer invention, but it's not the case. He tried to sell the train brake system to a lot of train operators, and they don't want it. They use cheap laborers to stop trains, and those laborers encounter great risks, and many times the trains cannot be stopped in time. Westinghouse system changed all that. It does not require laborers. It's an automated system, and it can stop trains very fast. But still, no one adapted the system. No one used his inventions. This is despite losses of lives, losses of damaged goods. It illustrates how hard it is for an invention to be used, to become an innovation. Westinghouse had to use all the money he got to build a demo system for a fast train. And the story goes that he gets all the train executives onto this train, and they were cruising. All of a sudden, a horse carriage coach crossed the train rail and was stuck there. So he was able to stop the train very fast and avoid an accident. After that point, his train brake starts to sell. This illustrates the importance of marketing. Marketing is to qualify your products and to build up the demand, both in terms of the end users, the consumers, and the executives in the train companies. Westinghouse is extremely good at it, but still he has to use all the money he got to build one demo system and illustrate the effectiveness. This is not an exception. Every invention encounters the same process. Have you heard of a successful company called Autozone? Auto what? Autozone. Autozone is one of the most successful companies in American history. It is NASDAQ listed. It sells aftermarket car parts and accessories. There are branches everywhere in the country. And if you look at the stock performance of Autozone over 30 years, it's just amazing. Now you might want to ask, how do people create this kind of company? Was this some smart design, careful thinking, and intelligent execution? No, it's none of that. Autozone, like many great companies, started by accident. It was started in the 1970s, actually, 50 years ago. It started off as an auto car parts division of a grocery store called Malone and Hyde, a single local grocery store in Memphis, Tennessee. The grocery store was a great success, and the car division called Auto Shack was also a great success. The founders of the grocery store actually sold their grocery store to another company and sold the auto parts part to yet another national chain operation. And who would guess that the Auto Shack, which started off as a convenience service to the customers of the grocery store buyers, actually becomes such a big giant. This story shows that a lot of great success happens by accident. But this is not an accident that happens to you when you're sitting in a study. This is an accident that happens when you're grinding it out in the business world. You see, many great opportunities happens every day. If you're not out there, if you're not in the ocean waiting for the wave, you will miss it. Because great waves comes every day, every minute, every second, everywhere. You have to be out there. You have to be in business to see those opportunities coming and going and catch the first one. That's the success of all the great young entrepreneurs as well. Steve Jobs, Gates, Musk, they were all business-minded. They were all businessmen. Despite their age, they were all businessmen. They wait for opportunities. They can smell and see the wave coming, and they catch it. After you catch it, you ride it for a long time, and you catch a lucky break, and you become big. If you have never watched the movie Founder, I highly recommend it. It's a story told about the creation of the McDonald's Corporation. The McDonald's Corporation was founded by Ray Kroc. You may ask, what happened to the McDonald's brothers? Why aren't the McDonald company founded by McDonald's brothers? Well, they were founded by two brothers. Their names are McDonald's, and they started the company in California. Ray Kroc is a kitchen appliance salesperson in the Midwest, in Chicago. How come he becomes a founder of the McDonald's? It's a very interesting story of entrepreneurship. To make the story short, Ray Kroc discovered by accident a new restaurant in California is ordering it is growing fast. So he went there. He went there to visit the McDonald's brothers. The McDonald's brothers are great people. They're honest, they're wholesome, and they showed Ray Kroc how things work. And they insist on high quality burgers at really, really fast speed of service. So they created this whole system of speedy systems of creating burgers at very high speed. And Ray Kroc really liked it. He started to cooperating with the McDonald brothers to open up chains in Chicago area in the Midwest. It expanded very rapidly. He later on developed the business model for making it sustainable for the company to make money, instead of just letting the franchisees make money. For that, he actually have to break the contract with the brothers, and for which he paid a penalty to the brothers later on. So this story is very interesting. It's about a vision-driven entrepreneur who went through heaven and hell to realize his plan, to realize his vision. He has to change his plan at least twice. He has to give up a lot of material comfort, and later on he got more. It's a story of struggle that you should watch. It's very illuminating for any entrepreneurs. It's a movie about life, it's a movie about business, it's a movie about trust, and it's a movie about gut instincts. One of the hallmarks when you become an entrepreneur is that you start to see a lot of things you didn't see before. Every grocery store on the street, every restaurant, every giant company in Silicon Valley becomes a business to you. You don't think of them as a establishment. Think of them as a former startup that has succeeded and they have grown. Every business, whether it's a restaurant, a website, a giant tech unicorn, they all had an epic story. It's not easy to start and it's not easy to stay alive. There are a lot of stories that are never told. One of my favorite stories is a restaurant near where I live. In our village, there's a restaurant that sells breakfast and lunch, but not dinner. They were very popular and they have done extremely well for 20 years. Later on, I became a friend with a restaurant owner and I started to know how hard his life is. First of all, he doesn't really make a lot of money. In order to save the cost, he refuses to take credit card, which makes it very difficult. For 20 years, he gets up at 4 a.m. to go to a supermarket so that he can get the freshest ingredient for the lowest price. Now think about it. That's hard work. In order to keep 2 or 3 people on the payroll, he has to generate enough money to support their salaries and benefits. And again, that's not easy. Unfortunately, this restaurant was also closed due to the COVID pandemic season. Even a small restaurant, even a giant tech company, no matter what, is a business. It's about mutual benefit exchanging, and it's not easy to be in that position. If you want to start any company, you have to plan to stay there for a long time, and startup also takes a long time. In the summertime, you can go to a store and see watermelons. Well, when you see a watermelon in a store, you are an end consumer, and the store is a retailer. The melon has taken a long journey from the field to you. The melon has to be made from seed, and this is done in a farm. The farm products are collected and they are distributed by a wholesaler. They're not distributed by a retailer. Farm sells a melon to the wholesalers at a price. The wholesalers sell the melon to the retailers at a price. And the retailers sell the melon to the end consumers at a price, called the MSRP, manufacturer suggested retail price. Eventually, a watermelon is considered a commodity and everybody accepts a certain price, say $3 per melon, $2 a melon, and so on and so forth. And that $2, that $3 is diced up and is shared from the retailer to the wholesaler to the farm. The retailer typically keeps half of it. The retailer actually keeps the biggest portion. Why is that? Because the retailer has to spend a lot of money. The retailers has to pay a lot of money to landlords, to regulators, and so on and so forth. They have huge expense, but they do a great job of distributing the goods that the wholesalers distribute. And the wholesalers makes it life much easier for the farmers because the farmers never have the bandwidth to deal with the selling part of it. But the selling part is 90% of the watermelon's price, no matter how low the price is. Entrepreneurship is not just for small players, for individuals. Big companies also do entrepreneurship. And for this, we need to study the case of Motorola. Motorola is a Chicago-based company that pioneered the art of mobile phones. Now, in the early days, Motorola was a great success. Its introduction of the mobile phone was both an element of luck and an element of dare. Near the end, Motorola was not able to catch on the digital mobile phone era. It was lagging behind because of its success in the analog mobile phone. The story of Motorola shows that you can succeed from nobody to a giant, and then you can fail as a giant. In the early days when Motorola was introducing the cell phone, people were not expecting to make a phone that you can call from anywhere on the street. Most of the mobile phone concept was for car use, and that's very limited use for executives, for rich people. Motorola had the vision of making a mobile phone a cellular phone concept. It becomes a leader of this arena for many decades. The success sometimes leads to failure. In the Motorola's case, it was successful in introducing the Motorola Razr. It was a beautiful phone. It's thin, it's sleek, it's sexy, it's a powerhouse. However, the chief engineer of this mobile phone object to the introduction of new digital mobile phones. They argue that digital mobile phones are clumsy, they are big, they're not as good looking as this previous generation one, so they did not commit themselves to developing digital mobile phone. Guess what? Motorola has already ceased to exist because it failed to make the transition. It ceased to be relevant in history, even though it was a pioneer of cellular phone technology.
On April 23, 2023, the chain store Bed Bath & Beyond finally announced its decision to file for bankruptcy and closing of all stores. This certainly marked the end of a chapter for many people's landscape of Americana. Bed Bath & Beyond was formed in 1971 and was called Bed & Bath. It is a big box retailer of home essentials, including bed accessories and kitchen tools. It was founded by Warren Eisenberg and Leo Feinstein in 1971. For many decades, the store is a happy destiny of many shoppers. The secret sauce, as stated by the founders, is the following. Bed & Bath textile were a destination purchase, but housewares drove the regular traffic needed to make the business work. The founders left the board in 2019 after actions by activist shareholders. We'll talk about this later. In 2023, the company finally closed due to reduction of profit, even after aggressively closing of many stores to save costs. Both founders worked at Arlen's, an American discount store chain. Arlen's reached its peak when Bed & Bath was formed. Arlen's opened its 50th store in 1965. At that point, the happy chain had $174 million in revenue and stores in 18 states from Maine to Colorado. It also owned 18 locations of a toy store called Playworld. The chain peaked in size at 119 stores in 1970, by which time the company began experiencing heavy operation losses. The losses would later be attributed, in part, to an expansion strategy that was too geographically diverse for the chain's size, leading to inefficient distribution. The company Bed Bath & Beyond would continue to fight with its competitors, including Linens and Things and Pacific Linen. Linens and Things essentially closed physical operations in 2000 and became an e-commerce store only. This is perhaps spurred due to the closing of Pacific Linen in 1999. Here is a history of the stock price from the original IPO in 1992. In 2011, it had over 1,000 stores. Signs of bad management surfaced in 2019. Activist shareholders did not like the acquisition of Bye Bye Baby and Chef Central, both stores founded by the children of Bed Bath & Beyond. Bye Bye Baby was acquired for $67 million of cash, including $19 million of debt. Chef Station is an experience store and was acquired for $1 million in 2017. The big box chain was once considered a so-called category killer in home and bath goods. For a long time, the store did not have product with its own brand. This clearly was a source of declining profit when you carry brands for others. For example, candles were priced for $30 for two, a clear ripoff by the brand seller. However, establishing an own brand takes time and money. The chain has seen its fortunes falter after an attempt to sell more of its own brand goods. The company, which had for decades used the coupon mailers and other promotional discount tactics to attract consumers, announced in April 2019 that it would reduce its use of promotional coupons and tighten restrictions on their use. To combat declining profitability, the company also announced it was creating private labels and opening lab stores that focused on home decor, food and drink, and health and beauty products. Apparently, these are too little too late. A side note about Bye Bye Baby. The store was formed in 1996 by Richard and Jeffrey Feinstein, son of the Bath & Beyond founder. It was acquired in 2007. The chief competitor was Baby R Us, which was closed in 2018 when its parent company Toys R Us filed for bankruptcy. Clearly, the 3-year pandemic from 2020 to 2023 hurt the store tremendously and accelerated its decline. There are lots of turmoil. For example, in January 2021, Bed Bath & Beyond announced that they would stop selling MyPillow, citing poor sales. In March 2022, former CEO of Chewy, Ryan Cohen, sent an open letter to the board of directors calling for Bye Bye Baby to be sold or spun off. On September 2, 2022, Bed Bath & Beyond chief financial officer committed suicide. Finally, it happened on April 23, 2023, after failures to pay off stocks, declining sales, high debt. Bed Bath & Beyond officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. As a loyal shopper, I am sorry to see the store go. As a student of business, there are some lessons to be learned. No stores can clearly replace its loss of experience. Oh well, what can entrepreneurs learn? Number 1, corporate life cycle is unavoidable, despite the best efforts. Number 2, expansion often drives decline. Once you are hitched on a stock market, your expansion, unfortunately, is no longer elective. Number 3, good cultures count. Failures to turn around a company before it hits a wall, unfortunately, will cause a company to hit the wall. With this, I hope you liked this short video. Thank you.